Hi, I'm Mary Lyons, the Wealth Woman.
I'm Eric Alexander with Acorn Grove.
Welcome to the Wealth and Income Podcast. And if you can't tell from my voice, I'm giggling just a little bit right now. We just had a technical malfunction getting everything going, and I wish I could just screenshot Eric's face for everyone who is listening. Because it just made my day. Like the giant wide-eyed, "Oh, what did I do?" moment.
I just tripped over the power plug for the universe and I've turned off everyone's lights. Look what happened. So
Well, I'm really excited about today. I know I say that a lot, but I got to have a really cool meeting a couple of weeks ago with somebody that I think maybe started our conversations from a fairly disempowered, dejected kind of state about, I hate my job, I love my family, but I'm not happy because I have to spend all my time at a job I don't love, and I don't feel like I get to have the things in my life that I want. And we did a plan implementation, I think probably 2, maybe 3 years ago. And we've been
yeah.
trucking along towards some changes, I think probably 2 years ago. And lots of good conversations, that sort of thing. But there was a major life event that has completely changed the trajectory of this family. And to me, these are the moments that if you don't have a plan, it's real easy to make bad choices.
Yeah.
But if you have a plan or a system that you can use to address windfalls, then you can make totally different choices.
Well, and as the shameless plug that I'm going to give for you on this is it's not just having a plan, it's having a Mary and somebody to go like, "Ah." No, but it's somebody to go, okay.
That was Eric making that high pitched noise, by the way,
That
that
was
you just
not,
heard. That
that
was
was not
Eric.
Mary.
That was not me.
That was my attempt to make like rays of sunshine come out of my voice, but that's not a thing. So, it beats coming out of another whatever.
Move on. Don't get us
So
canceled, Eric. Don't
I
get us
know.
canceled.
So, but I think part of that is having an advisor in the system that knows what's going on and doesn't have any emotion around your money
Yeah.
that can go, okay, pause. Let's think through this logically, because at some point you just kind of go nuts with what if, what if, what if, what if, and you never get to an actual decision, right? So
Yeah.
having a Mary is good.
Well, and I'm going to tell you back to not having emotion around money. One of the things that this particular couple asked is to help me help them see the possibilities.
Yeah.
What can we really do? Because there was a lot of so let me tell you what happened first of all. So the husband got a new job, and it was a $60,000 raise.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
huge.
big raise. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's
I
huge.
think as a family, they previously were making about 250, and then with the raise, they're at 310 for household income. So a huge jump, huge,
Yeah.
huge. And they already had a pretty conservative lifestyle to begin with. So when someone says, I have an extra $60,000 a year, what should I be doing with it? And they called and asked that question. My first response was, I don't know. What are you going to do? What are you going to buy? Where are you going to travel?
Right.
And they're like, no, we're calling because you're supposed to tell us to invest it all.
We need to adult and we don't want
Sure.
to.
And I'm like, no, I'm connected to dreams. Let's talk about the fun stuff. But the practical part of this is really fun too. And I will tell you to that end, I built 7 iterations
Yes.
of different possibilities for them before they came in, and really wanted them to have the ability to look through, here's how making certain changes would really change the trajectory of their life. So I'm going to give you guys a
Right.
little bit of background really quickly.
Yeah.
This particular couple is living in a $500,000 house, and the kind of mortgage payment, I think, was about $2,500.
Yeah.
So, kind of traditionally financed from back in the day. And they were making a little bit of overpayment on that mortgage as well to begin with. So that at this point in time, they really only owed, I think, less than $50,000 on the mortgage at this point. I think it was somewhere in the 40s.
That's
And
huge, by the way. That's huge.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so they were in a position, and they've lived in the same house for a really long time. So it was mostly, it was mostly their payment and then some extra, right? And so if you look at what they could do, if they can redirect dollars or if they could pay down debt,
Right.
there's a big jump there, because if you can get rid of somewhere between 2,500 and maybe 3,500 with extra payment of cash flow obligation, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And the balance was small enough and the cash flow freed up big enough that we kind of did the analysis of, does it make sense to just keep paying the mortgage for a long time, or do we pay the mortgage off as aggressively as possible?
Yeah.
And then in a couple of years, do something different with the cash flow.
Yeah, well, and I think that's such a fun conversation that we've had with clients over the years is I'm thinking about paying debt off. Which should I pay off first? And I think it's an emotional conversation, but it's also a mathematical conversation. And the math would say, I don't know, whatever the one that gives you the highest interest rate, you should knock that down because that's heavy cost. But I think that's the knee jerk. And I think the other version of that question, or the competing question, says, yeah, but if I pay this off, if I pay X off, what does that free up in cash flow? If I can knock out a $10,000 debt line item and it frees up $5,000 a month, I don't care if that's 0% financing. We're going to do that because it opens up flexibility.
Right, right. So I think that's the first thing that they were looking at. They had balances on cars that also had fairly sizable, small balances on cars, sizable car payment. So we looked at, okay, what would happen if we paid that off? And then, the next piece of that was, could we get rid of, they had a line of credit that they had borrowed against at some point in time. So if we look at how much cash flow was being directed to these things, if we took the entirety of the take-home pay on the raise, and then they kept doing what they were doing, they could be pretty much debt-free in a 2-year time period.
It's huge.
No brainer, because from a cash flow perspective, you think 2 car payments at, call it $500 a month, that's $1,000 a month, 12 grand a year. Right? You look at the home equity line of credit, because they were trying to chunk it down as quickly as possible, probably $1,500 a month times 12, that's $18,000 a year. So just those 2 items, that's $30,000 of cash flow per year. Then you look at the actual mortgage that they were paying at $2,500 a month, because you're still going to have the taxes and insurance. The $2,500 was just principal and interest. That's another 30 grand a month, right? So now you're talking about what, $60,000 of after-tax cash flow every year that's getting freed up. And then because they were making extra payments on the mortgage, let's call that, I don't know, another $800 a month or something. So that there's $40,000, right? I did that math wrong, didn't I?
No,
there's 70,000.
Right.
$70,000. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm going to be real candid right here, because I'm having one of these moments. Okay. We're sitting here trying to record a podcast and do really important work and change the world. And apparently my dog threw up on his bed in the crate in the other room. And my daughter, who just got home from whatever sports thing she was doing, is not only blowing up my text, but coming into the room waving frantically at me. So she is now handling that. But if I have seemed somewhat distracted through the first part of that, welcome to my life when I work from home. So
yeah, no doubt.
It is what it is. We are going to get through this, and then we're going to go check on the dog. So if this is not a human moment where you can be like, oh, her life is a mess too, just like mine, I don't know what is.
I'm just glad it's you today and not me. It all comes around.
I like to think I'm like a brilliant human being on occasion. And then there's moments like this where I'm like, I'm just getting through. It's okay.
It's okay. Yep.
It's okay. Okay. So $70,000 potentially of freed up cash flow in 2 years plus, right? That's after tax money. So you think about, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, that's $100,000 of your salary income.
Gross. Yeah.
Right?
Equivalent.
You pay the taxes, there's 70 left over that now that's freed up to do whatever you want, plus the $60,000 raise.
Right.
We're talking like we can do some crazy things.
Right. We can make it rain.
See, that one was me. That's what it sounds like when I make high-pitched noises. Woo!
But
No, that
that's-
was you. You got to claim your high-pitched noises or
Yeah,
people are gonna be like, what's she doing?
it's all falsetto. But no, so yeah, but so if you think about it at a pre-tax equivalent, that's 160 grand that just showed up,
Right.
which is really amazing.
And it's gonna keep showing up every single year.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not a one-time, hey, here's 160 grand, enjoy it, don't blow it.
Well, and that is money that either did not exist before or money that was going to debt service before. So we haven't even included the money they were already saving. So again, very diligent family here. They were saving the equivalent of about $3,000 a month after taxes, but some of it was pre-tax money going into a 401k. So if you look at what they had to earn, top line salary before they pay taxes to be able to save the way they did, they were saving almost $54,000 of their salary. So I just want to go through this math really quick, right? Debt service here took up 100 grand of the 250, right? And then savings took roughly another 50 of that. So there was really about 100, right? That, they were able to spend that. Again, all of this is the pre-tax number. So when you take the taxes out, it may feel a little bit different than all of that. But here's the thing. So if you look at what they were saving, if they did things the conventional way, so all the money to all the investments all the time, nothing else.
Right.
And we just kind of assumed roughly a 6% rate of return on their assets. They were about 46 years old when we did this check-in and planning to retire at 65, which we just kind of did because that's all they thought was possible. If they did things the conventional way, they were going to have about 133,000, I think was the number of income every year. So here's the thing, right? If we're spending 3%, that means they're saving a lot of money. They get to retirement and they have around $4 million if they're pulling at a 3% withdrawal rate, a little over, maybe 4.5 million.
Right.
So, and again, like even saying those numbers out loud when we talk to them, because this is 20 years into the future that they're going to have that kind of money. They were like, it doesn't feel real that we're ever going to have that much money.
Right.
Right.
Well, and traditionally though, it's not that much money to spend.
Right.
4 million, 4.5 million, whatever the number was. That's a lot of numbers. That's a seven digit net worth at that point, and a fairly sizable 7-digit number, but it's not producing the income that you think 7 digits would do.
Right. And I think that's key. So if we're saying these numbers and you're like, man, I should be producing more than that, my advisor can get me more return than that, you need to go back to some of the older podcasts right now and look at safe withdrawal rates and understand the sequence of return risk. So if I'm saying words and you're like, I don't know what that is, go back to the older podcasts and listen to those, because you need that foundation to understand why the conventional method is not going to get you where you think it's going to take you.
Right.
Okay. So again, if you've listened to us before, you know that we prefer a combination of insurance and investments. Not all one, not all the other, a perfect balance, the perfect ratio, just exactly right, Goldilocks kind of approach between the two, right? And that is going to vary from family to family, but the ratios are the same every time that we do this, because what we're trying to do is change the distribution strategy. So I want equal weighting on how do I go get growth? That's the investment side. And then how do I get distribution, which means how can I safely spend more of my money? That comes from the insurance side. And really, it comes from the way the two of those interact. You can't do it if you don't have both tools.
Yeah. And I think the misnomer is the market sucks, buy more insurance. And that's not the answer either.
Not it.
Right. It is really the blend.
It is the blend between the two. I don't care what kind of investments you're looking at. You got to have investments. You got to have growth. You got to have the insurance, right? So what we teach is a concept that I like to call the easy button. And it's really about changing your income strategies. So when you fund both the investments and the insurance in the right ratios, you can either create a simulated pension when you retire, where you get the same paycheck every single month for the rest of your life, or you can create a volatility buffer, or sometimes I call it a market shock absorber, where if the market is down and your investments are not performing, you have an alternate source of capital and you can pull from it to get your income. And when you do that, you can safely spend more, like 7% instead of 3%.
Right.
So huge differences. So if they hit that easy button and we look at what they put into place when they first sat down to have these conversations a couple years ago, they were headed towards about 180,000 of income. And I want to be really clear, that's saving exactly the same amount of money. The only thing that changed is where we're putting it, and we're looking for a balance between insurance and investments. And I'm going to be really honest with you, we didn't hit it. We were overweighted on the investment side.
Yeah. And I think that's always the challenge sometimes when we're doing that, is that we know what the end goal should look like. But, you know, as I'm wont to say, I'm powerful, I'm not magical. Like there's only so many dollars we can move around. Sometimes we don't get to that one-to-one, but that's always the mission.
Well, and I'm going to say something else you say all the time, right? You have a master's degree or maybe even a PhD in spending other people's money.
Right.
But sometimes even though we know, hey, this is the exact ratio, that doesn't mean that the client is ready to buy into that yet, right?
Amen. Yeah.
Sometimes they take a step in the right direction, even if they aren't like leaping all the way to the finish line, but a step in the right direction is still a right direction. And so if I think about part of the reason we didn't get all the way there, it's because they were only comfortable saying I could save 50 grand a year, even though for the years prior to meeting with me, they were saving about 70. So of their earned income, right? So after taxes, they were really saving about 60 grand, I'm sorry, 50,000 a year. So pre-tax 71 if you subtract out the taxes. But our plan initially was built on 36, 37 being saved.
Right.
And so there's extra money there that wasn't being allocated.
Right. Yeah. So it was out of whack. It was out of efficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we looked at is let's actually allocate those dollars now. So when we did that and we allocated the dollars, if we did things the conventional way, the output was about 144,000 of income every year once they retired.
So about a 12K jump if you did it traditionally.
Right.
Right.
If instead we got the insurance part to catch up with the investments, so we got much closer to the ratios that create optimal income, their income jumped to 210 from 180.
It's huge.
So much more efficiency for the dollars being saved that are being created. So they looked at that number and they were like, okay, that's definitely, we feel like close to the amount of money it would take to replace our current lifestyle on an after, like once we go through all the math, subtract out what we're saving, our house is paid off, all that kind of stuff.
And the interesting part is this is before all of the raise, before all of the other stuff. This is just rearranging what they're actually doing. And you were able to get them to that kind of 210, 212 number, which once you burn through what they're actually saving and how much is going to debt payoff and everything else, that's way more than their actual like fundamental lifestyle.
Right. So the thing that they conveyed was really important to me was getting out from under the debt immediately.
Yep.
And there were a couple of reasons for that. They were trying to figure out, okay, with this extra money, what can we do? How much of it should go to lifestyle?
Yeah.
How much of that should go towards savings so that we can retire sooner? Like instead of waiting till 65, let's retire much earlier.
Right.
Things that they kind of sent over for me to think through were, we'd like to upgrade our primary residence. That was from the wife. The husband said, I'm fine with where we live currently. I want a lake house. So we're not on the same page here with what kind of real estate we want to acquire.
Right.
And then there was talk of, do I get a new car at some point? You know, all the things. And so this particular couple, the thing that I think drove them from kind of the early conversations was a fear that they would never be able to retire, because when I first met them, they were both in jobs that they did not like. And I think that is an understatement. Like, did not like. She moved jobs within probably the first 6 months of us having conversations.
Right.
He was working on this move because it was a very strategic move, probably for a year and a half.
Yeah.
before it actually happened. And so, that's sometimes the way of it. So when you come from a mindset of, I'm not happy, I just want to be done working, you are willing to defer lots of gratification, right? So he's like, I can take all the freed up cash flow and put that towards our future. And I can take all the new income and put that towards our future. I just want to be done in a short period of time. And I want to know that I can retire and replace my income. I actually didn't even build that model.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why would you defer all that gratification? Like, why not make life a little bit better today? Now, candidly, and Eric can confirm this, if they do defer all that gratification, we make a lot more money.
Amen. That's right.
Right. And I'm like, I think that's the wrong choice for you, because I think you deserve to enjoy some of your life now. Like,
well, and as long as and there's always a Goldilocks in the middle. Okay, let's defer some gratification. Let's buy a Porsche, not a Lamborghini. Let's buy whatever. Let's buy a mountain house in Colorado, not Switzerland. But I mean, I think there's other components of, if they've been through a situation where they've really, really hated a job, they know what that feels like. And they know that that trapped component there that can be like really crushing for, I don't want to get out of bed because this is miserable. And so I think finding that balance between, hey, I've seen that and right now it's okay, but I've been there before and I don't want to be back. I want freedom to go take this job and shove it if it needs to be done.
So let's be really clear on first action items. The first action items are spending the next 2 years getting completely out of debt.
Yep.
And that's not normally where I would go, because I don't believe that all debt is bad debt. But given how small the quantity of the debt is in the scheme of their overall what they owe and how much money they can allocate towards it, the amount of freedom and relief emotionally that they would experience is huge. But if we get rid of all of that drag on the cash flow in a 2-year time period, which is really pretty short, then we have the ability to invest massive amounts of money 2 years from now.
Right.
So the actual meeting, what we met to talk about was, how do we start to get a vision for what life looks like after the next 2 years, so that we know what choices we can make when. We want to know what we're going to do when we are completely out of debt. I don't want to wait and figure it out then, right? So I found that to be kind of interesting, because it's not like they were saying, we're going to wait to have a conversation about what to do with our money until we're out of debt.
Yeah.
It was, let's figure it out now so we know what we're looking forward to, and it will keep us on track.
And I think so many people don't do that. They make decisions in a very linear fashion, and they make one decision and they're done. And you've said it 100 million times, 90% of life and adulting is trying to trick yourself into making good choices. And I think that's a huge part of it. Is if I have it's what company that we do some work with called the Sugar Rush. You got all this money coming in, you don't know what to do with it. It's not allocated. There's this impulse to go spend it and blow it and do whatever. And sort of reining that back in a little bit and being smart with it and building in barriers so that you don't go off the rails and do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
I think helps you get better, faster, longer, and able to go do the things that you should. Because the regret is a huge piece of that we see all the time. Man, if only I'd saved more, if only I'd done this. But I had to buy the Maserati because that's what I had to have. Like it's so much about this is an emotional conversation and trying to trick yourself into doing really good things.
Well, it goes to another thing that we say all the time, honestly, is that people trade what they really want for what they want right now.
Right.
So if you don't know what you really want, or what's even really possible for you to want, and I think that's another key right there, then it's easy to just look for instant gratification. And that's what leads to making bad choices, right? I mean, you could easily just look at that and be like, I have an extra $60,000 a year. Let's sell our house and move into another one and call it good. Well, then you're still treading water. Except that now you have to stay at the new job, even if you don't like it, when you wake up 6 months down the road, right? And so really working towards being debt-free means that, oh gosh, if this really doesn't work out, we could actually do something where we took a major pay cut and still be headed in a really positive direction. So that freedom, I think, is a huge, huge motivator for this particular couple. And that is honestly like to the customization part. What is your
Yeah.
motivator? What is it that you need? Because if you have always been at a job you love and you have control over your destiny and you're running your own company and you want to keep doing that, great. But if you've already been in this situation once, like maybe figure out, is this, you know, like you said earlier, let's keep ourselves from being in that situation again.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So one of the things that they brought up is they're like, okay, Mary, you talk about real estate all the time, just as an income producing asset when you're doing examples of assets that produce income. Does that make sense for us? And my response was, I have no idea, but let's
Maybe.
model. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens. And so the first kind of conversation was driven by the wife, who was like, well, what if we keep our house and rent it out? And then we just take all of the extra money that we have and we go buy a new house and just kind of live our life, but don't save anything extra.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's model it. So we basically took their house, which was worth about $500,000, and we assumed a 4% growth rate. So very conservative. I don't want to use
Yeah.
some massive crazy number. I just want to use a nice conservative growth rate on the equity in the house. Because if it's paid off 2 years from now, I can model that pretty easily. So in about 19 years, at 4% growth, it's worth a little over $1 million.
Right.
And we made the assumption that because it's a rental property, when they retire, they don't want to be a landlord anymore. And what we did is we took the $2,500 a month that was essentially not going to be going to the mortgage anymore, but they could get enough rent that was their profit margin, right? So after the expenses of maintaining the property, they were going to take home about 30 grand a year. So all we did in this scenario is we rebalanced the strategy so that we had the 30 grand going towards funding a new insurance contract so that the death benefit on that contract would be equal to the value of the property. Plus, they weren't quite in the right alignment to begin with. So this allowed us to get much, much closer between the two of them. So when we did that, just that one move, that's the only thing that happened. So all the money from the raise, all the freed up cash flow, all of that going to lifestyle.
Right.
Their income, doing things the conventional way, would have gone from 144 to 195. Doing things our way, it went from 210 to $312,000 of income per year.
Right. You can have 50K more or you can have 100K more. What would you like? Right.
It's like a no-brainer to me.
Right. Well, and the thing I like about that is it's the extreme end of I'm going to spend all the money, all the raise, all the freed up money from the debt piece of it. I'm going to go like live like a drunken sailor, whatever. Right. And all I'm doing differently from a saving standpoint is I'm just saving the rent that we're making from the house. And if I think through a flexibility, the freedom part of my brain that wants all the freedom all the time, if the renter skips town in the middle of the night, and I'm out of revenue for a couple months, who cares? I'm not using that money to go live on.
Right.
I'll just stop saving for a couple months, get the renter in, and we'll start saving again. Like I'm not in a worse position by doing that.
Right. And I love this. So for her, she was like, this is great. I can upgrade my house. We can maybe live a more robust lifestyle right now. And he was like, wait a minute, what about my lake house? What if I don't want to do that? What if I want to do something different? And so, you know, why couldn't you do both? Was the conversation.
Right.
There's nothing that says you can't. I said, what would happen if you did this, upgraded your lifestyle, and then took some of that extra cash flow and, you know, use that or the cash in your policies as a down payment on a lake house? Even if you just broke even on the lake house, renting it out when you're not using it because your kids have sports, so you're not going to be there every single weekend. It's just not going to happen. If you could just break even on that, and I didn't even account for any equity growth or any of that, you could do that at the same time.
Yeah. It's not either or.
Yeah, you could do both.
Yeah.
And so they're like, wait, we could have a new house and a lake house. I like this idea. And I was like, now you slow your roll. If you're going to buy a lake house, like you need to analyze it, make sure it can be rented out, that you can at least break even. Right. And you need to know that your budget can handle it. If you have it just vacant all the time, or I'm not going to give you the green light to go do it. You could still do it without my green light, but if you want my green
Sure.
light, there's provisions. We're going to meet them.
Right. Well, and the thing that I love about this is they've got 2 years to kind of let this sink in.
Right.
Because I think so many times we knee jerk into somebody else's scorecard before we
Yes.
try it out on our own.
Mhm.
Like, I'm like, is this what I really want, or is this what I'm supposed to really want?
Well, and here's the beautiful thing. If they get a lake house and they find out they aren't lake people, sell the house.
Well, or go VRBO a lake house once a month for 3 or 4 days a month and go, if we did this all the time, is this what we want life to look like? And if
Right.
you don't want it, then all you're out is the vacation rental, payment that you made.
Try it on before you commit to it.
Yes. And like, nope, this is my slice of heaven. Okay, well, now you know, right? And then, but you get 2 years to figure that out.
Right.
That's brilliant.
Okay, so I have another model we're going to go through real quick.
Yes, you do.
This model is, what if you just stay put where you are?
Yeah.
Right. And the only thing that you do is you take that mortgage payment, and you take the money that was the extra and you use that to just create a balanced plan, but now you're not a landlord. So all of the debt you got rid of, except for the house, you can now spend on whatever you want. And all of the raise you can spend on whatever you want, but you don't have to be a landlord. Because I think that's really a big deal for a lot of people.
Yes.
And like some people don't like being a landlord, right? The reason they're in the stock market is because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with someone calling them at 2 a.m. because the toilet's not flushing.
Right.
Right. So if they do that, they end up at 305
Yes. Yes.
without being a landlord. And I got to tell you, I'm like, oh, I like the other one because the number's bigger and they don't have to save as much because they're just redirecting the 30 grand of profit right over here. They're putting 40 grand away, but they are not in the mortgage situation. So I'm all like proud of the first one. And Eric was like, hands down, no.
Hands down, the second one, third one, whatever this one is, and
The last one.
all day long.
So we may have to have another grudge match, y'all.
Yeah, I know.
Like it may really happen. We may throw down to be like, which one's actually better? But here's what I think is beautiful. There's so much choice and freedom here.
Right.
So much choice and freedom about what someone is going to do moving forward. And that I think is the big deal. And I love the point you made earlier, Eric, about having 2 years to figure it out, because here's what happened at the end of our conversation when we went through all of their numbers is they were giddy, right? I mean, because this is about, okay, so here's really where the conversation went, because I said, I feel like I should have done a couple other builds. Like, here's one, if you invest all of the money, here's how much earlier you can retire. And they said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I know that we said that on the front end, but the idea of enjoying some of this money now is really appealing.
Right.
And we have no idea what we would even spend the money on because this has never been real to us.
Right. Well,
so
yeah, that's huge.
I think it is. And, the piece that's, I think, really exciting about this is that now we get to go revisit their dreams, because the dreams that are possible in this scenario are entirely different.
Well, and we had this conversation, I think it was in last week's podcast, about little kids that are playing soccer and all they're doing is running around sort of looking at their shoes and that's all they can see. And so 2 years to raise their eye line up and look around is huge. Like, what a cool gift. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that language choice. I do.
Well, because then they can go, nope, I wouldn't do that. That sounded like a good idea, but man, that looks horrible. I don't want to be a landlord. Like,
right.
Heck no. Right.
And I think what'll really happen, if I had to guess, is they will rent out the house and look for a new property, right? That they can move into. So really like upgrading their current lifestyle.
Right.
And I think they will get a lake house. I think both of those things are very real, but they may get the lake house first, see how that goes from a cash flow perspective, right? Then rent out the property and look for a new place to live. And I think realistically, they'll save some of that extra money. I don't think they're going to spend it all. The way they're already saving, they are not, I'm going to spend every penny I make kind of people.
Yeah.
And so I think what changes and what they will prioritize is a little bit of upgraded lifestyle, right? I would say if you're moving into a larger house in a neighborhood you're more excited about, and you're getting a lake house at the same time, and everything else you just kind of mostly keep the same, that's a huge lifestyle upgrade. And then the conversation is going to be wrapped around, okay, if we do save this extra money, how can we retire at 55 instead of at 65? So instead of having a, 19-year horizon, can we shorten it to a 9-year horizon?
Yeah, and after listening to this and listening to this client, my guess is all that extra money is going to go to pay down all the other houses anyway, because that's just their MO. And so if they're done and they don't have a lake house to pay for, and they already don't have the rental house to pay for, why wouldn't, I mean, they're going to go do that anyway. That's their natural bent.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I think that's the fun of it is we don't have to pick that for them. Like your dad used to say something all the time is sort of, today will take care of itself, because there's 1,000 baby ducks sort of nibbling at our feet. Like it's the future that we have to figure out with. And that like, we don't have to be amazing at figuring out what the client's going to go do. They'll just tell you. And then you
Right.
just swerve, you just steer into the skid, right? You're just like, okay, well, this is what
Let's
you're going to
make
go do anyway. Let's just figure it out how to make it work.
Make it better. Let's
Yeah.
make sure we don't wreck the car.
Exactly. Right. And so that's the fun of it, is just trying to like read between the lines and figure out, yeah, they're never going to do that. Nope, they're never going to, that's what they're going to do. Just build to where we're heading that way anyway. Right.
Well, and I got to tell you, like, for me, I think one of the most exciting things about being in this position is getting to help people reattach to hope for the future,
Yeah, for sure.
for excitement, for right now. Like, think about how differently they parented their kids that day.
Right.
They're like, life
Everything's
is amazing, life
okay.
is good. I don't care if you're misbehaving. I'm happy and I love you, right?
Right.
I think all of these things, when you see your own future unfolding in a way that you are excited to participate in your own life, that changes so much of how you interact with the world around you. Like, I guarantee you, he's showing up as a better employee. She's showing up as
Yes.
a better
Yeah.
employee. They're showing up as better spouses, because look at this life that they're building together, as better parents, right? Because they're showing their kids, you can have your dream life, take action. I mean,
Right.
there's just so many ways that this affects the world around them. And then like immediately internally inside of them too. And like, to me, all the math is fun. I love it. It's like a giant
Yeah.
puzzle. And I love being able to do all of this at a strategic level, and even like the myopic implementation type of level is fun. But I think the most exciting part about it for me is, again, right, it goes back to what I always say. Like, I just want our clients to say, hey, my life is better because you guys are in it. And when I know that's true, I'm lit up. Like, I just want to go share it with the next person.
Right. Well, and the funny part, and we can close with this because I know we're over time, but the funny part about it is it's like we get to take all of this credit for doing math, and it's like, dude, that guy got a better job. I had no, like he just created 60 grand out of nothing. Good job, dude. And then I get to
Well,
come
I'm
in.
just going to point out to you, though, they were headed for 180. And on the other strategy, right, let's call it 305. I created that out of thin air.
For sure. But it's like, hey,
So
I
he
did
had
all
to
this
create
work.
it first.
Right.
Yeah.
I did all this cool work. And it's like, dude, you just moved some numbers around.
You crushed it.
You
You crushed it.
That's right.
I mean, they did the hard work. You're right. They did the hardest work.
Right. But I think that's where the idea of having a team comes in, is being able to have cheat and have someone else's horizon
Right.
for you, right?
Right.
Which
Right.
is really cool. So anyway, well done.
All right, Eric, where can they find you?
Economics with Eric, wherever you use social media. And you?
They can find me at The Wealth Woman.
You're awesome. See you soon.
Pacific financial concepts and advanced strategies are presented to you for educational purposes only. We cannot and do not guarantee their applicability to your individual circumstance. We encourage you to seek personalized advice from qualified professionals on all financial matters.
Provided content is for overview and is not intended and should not be relied upon as individualized tax, legal, fiduciary, or investment advice. Neither Wealth Woman, Acorn Grove, or the Wealth and Income Podcast, nor their representatives provide tax or legal advice. For answers to specific questions and before making any decision, please consult a qualified attorney or tax advisors.
All numeric examples and any individual shown are hypothetical and were used for explanatory purposes only. Actual results may vary.
Investing involves risk, which includes potential loss of principal. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Life insurance should be purchased by individuals that have a need to provide a death benefit to protect others with insurable interests in their lives against financial loss. Life insurance is not a retirement plan, investment, or savings account.
Not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or any governmental agency. Insurance and investment products, not a deposit, not FDIC or NCUA insured, not insured by any federal government agency, not guaranteed by any bank or credit union, may lose value.
Please visit the Wealth Woman website disclosure page for other important disclosures.